Sir Winston Leonard Spencer Churchill, 1, kg, OM, ch, td, dl, frs, ra, November 30, 1874, January 24, 1965, was a British statesman, army officer, and writer. He was Prime Minister of the United Kingdom from 1940 to 1945, when he led the country to victory in the Second World War, and again from 1951 to 1955. Apart from 2 years between 1922 and 1924, Churchill was a Member of Parliament, MP, from 1900 to 1964 and represented a total of 5 constituencies. Ideologically an economic liberal and imperialist, he was for most of his career a member of the Conservative Party, as leader from 1940 to 1955. He was a member of the Liberal Party from 1904 to 1924. Of mixed English and American parentage, Churchill was born in Oxfordshire to a wealthy, aristocratic family. He joined the British Army in 1895 and saw action in British India, the Anglo-Sudan War, and the Second Boer War, gaining fame as a war correspondent and writing books about his campaigns. Elected a Conservative MP in 1900, he defected to the Liberals in 1904. In H. Asquith's Liberal government, Churchill served as President of the Board of Trade and Home Secretary, championing prison reform and workers' social security. As First Lord of the Admiralty during the First World War, he oversaw the Gallipoli Campaign but, after it proved a disaster, he was demoted to Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster. He resigned in November 1915 and joined the Royal Scots Fusiliers on the Western Front for 6 months. In 1917, he returned to government under David Lloyd George and served successively as Minister of Munitions, Secretary of State for War, Secretary of State for Air, and Secretary of State for the Colonies, overseeing the Anglo-Irish Treaty and British foreign policy in the Middle East. After 2 years out of Parliament, he served as Chancellor of the Exchequer in Stanley Baldwin's Conservative government, returning the pound sterling in 1925 to the gold standard at its pre-war parity, a move widely seen as creating deflationary pressure and depressing the UK economy. Out of office during the 1930s, Churchill took the lead in calling for British rearmament to counter the growing threat of militarism in Nazi Germany. At the outbreak of the Second World War he was reappointed First Lord of the Admiralty. In May 1940, he became Prime Minister, replacing Neville Chamberlain. Churchill oversaw British involvement in the Allied war effort against the Axis powers, resulting in victory in 1945. After the Conservatives' defeat in the 1945 general election, he became leader of the opposition. Amid the developing Cold War with the Soviet Union, he publicly warned of an Iron Curtain of Soviet influence in Europe and promoted European unity. Re-elected Prime Minister in 1951, his second term was preoccupied with foreign affairs, especially Anglo-American relations and, despite ongoing decolonization, preservation of the British Empire. Domestically, his government emphasized house building and developed a nuclear weapon. In declining health, Churchill resigned as Prime Minister in 1955, although he remained an MP until 1964. Upon his death in 1965, he was given a state funeral. Widely considered one of the 20th century's most significant figures, Churchill remains popular in the UK and Western world, where he is seen as a victorious wartime leader who played an important role in defending Europe's liberal democracy against the spread of fascism. Also praised as a social reformer and writer, among his many awards was the Nobel Prize in Literature. Conversely, he has been criticized for some wartime events, notably the 1945 bombing of Dresden, and for his imperialist views and comments on race. Churchill was born on November 30, 1874 at his family's ancestral home, Blenheim Palace in Oxfordshire. 2. As direct descendants of the Dukes of Marlborough, his family were among the highest levels of the British aristocracy. 3. His father, Lord Randolph Churchill, had been elected Conservative MP for Woodstock in 1873. 4. His mother, Jenny, was a daughter of Leonard Jerome, a wealthy American businessman. 5. In 1876, Churchill's paternal grandfather, John Spencer Churchill, was appointed Viceroy of Ireland, then part of the United Kingdom. Randolph became his private secretary and the family relocated to Dublin. 6. Winston's brother, Jack, was born there in 1880. 7. Throughout much of the 1880s, Randolph and Jenny were effectively estranged. 8. And the brothers were mostly cared for by their nanny, Elizabeth Everest. 9. Churchill later wrote that she had been my dearest and most intimate friend during the whole of the 20 years I had lived. 10. Churchill began boarding at St. George's School in Asquith, Berkshire, at age 7 but was not academic and his behavior was poor. 11. In 1884 he transferred to Brunswick School in Hove, where his academic performance improved. 12. In April 1888, aged 13, he narrowly passed the entrance exam for Harrow School. 13. His father wanted him to prepare for a military career and so his last 3 years at Harrow were in the Army form. 14. After 2 unsuccessful attempts to gain admittance to the Royal Military Academy, Sandhurst, he succeeded on his third. 15. He was accepted as a cadet in the cavalry, starting in September 1893. 16. His father died in January 1895, soon after Churchill finished at Sandhurst. 17. In February 1895, Churchill was commissioned as a second lieutenant in the 4th Queen's Own Hussars Regiment of the British Army, based at Aldershot. 19. Eager to witness military action, he used his mother's influence to get himself posted to a war zone. 20. In the autumn of 1895, he and his friend Reggie Barnes, then a subaltern, went to Cuba to observe the War of Independence and became involved in skirmishes after joining Spanish troops attempting to suppress independence fighters. 21. Churchill proceeded to New York City and, in admiration of the United States, wrote to his mother about what an extraordinary people the Americans are. 22. With the Hussars, he went to Bombay in October 1896. 23. Based in Bangalore, he was in India for 19 months. Visiting Calcutta 3 times and joining expeditions to Hyderabad and the northwest frontier. 24. In India, Churchill began a self-education project. 25. Reading a range of authors including Plato, Edward Gibbon, Charles Darwin, and Thomas Babington Macaulay. 26. The books were sent to him by his mother, with whom he shared frequent correspondence when abroad. In one 1898 letter to her, he referred to his religious beliefs, saying, "I do not accept the Christian or any other form of religious belief." 27. Churchill had been christened in the Church of England 28, but, as he related later, he underwent a virulently anti-Christian phase in his youth, 29, and as an adult was an agnostic. 30. In another letter to one of his cousins, he referred to religion as a delicious narcotic and expressed a preference for Protestantism over Roman Catholicism because he felt it a step nearer reason. 31. Interested in British parliamentary affairs, 32, he declared himself a Liberal in all but name, adding that he could never endorse the Liberal Party's support for Irish Home Rule. 33. Instead, he allied himself to the Tory democracy wing of the Conservative Party, and on a visit home, gave his first public speech for the party's Primrose League in Bath. 34. Mixing reformist and conservative perspectives, he supported the promotion of secular, non-denominational education while opposing women's suffrage. 35. Churchill volunteered to join Bindon Blood's Malacan Field Force in its campaign against Mahmand rebels in the Swat Valley of northwest India. Blood accepted him on condition that he was assigned as a journalist, the beginning of Churchill's writing career. 36. He returned to Bangalore in October 1897 and there wrote his first book, The Story of the Malacan Field Force, which received positive reviews. 37. He also wrote his only work of fiction, Savrola, a Ruritanian romance. 38. To keep himself fully occupied, Churchill embraced writing as what Roy Jenkins calls his whole habit, especially through his political career when he was out of office. It was his main safeguard against recurring depression, which he termed his black dog. 39.